In a hole in the ground, there lived a mole. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole, but a comfortable, cozy mole hole, filled with the scent of earth and the warmth of home. For years, Mole had been content in his underground world, tending to his tunnels and chambers with quiet satisfaction. But on this particular spring morning, something stirred in his heart, a longing for something beyond the familiar darkness, a pull toward the unknown world above. Mole paused in his spring cleaning, his small paws dusty from scrubbing the floor. He sniffed the air, catching a whiff of something fresh and green, something that whispered of sunlight and open skies. His heart quickened. Without a second thought, he dropped his brush, scampered up the tunnel, and pushed his way through the soft earth until, pop, he emerged into the bright, bewildering world above. The sunlight dazzled his eyes, and the air was alive with sounds he had never heard before. The rustle of leaves, the chirping of birds, the distant murmur of water. Mole blinked, his whiskers twitching with excitement. He took a tentative step forward, then another, until he was scampering through the meadow, his heart pounding with the thrill of discovery. As he wandered, the murmur of water grew louder, and soon Mole found himself standing on the bank of a wide, sparkling river. He had never seen such a thing before. The water flowed smoothly, glinting in the sunlight, and on its surface, small boats bobbed gently. Mole's eyes widened in wonder. He edged closer, dipping a paw into the cool water, marveling at the sensation. Suddenly, a cheerful voice called out, "Hello there. What are you up to?" Mole looked up to see a water rat lounging in a small rowing boat tied to the bank. The rat had bright, friendly eyes and a welcoming smile. He wore a neat little jacket and held an oar in one paw. I'm just looking at the river," Mole stammered, feeling a bit shy. "I've never seen one before. Never seen a river." The rat's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Well, you're in for a treat then. There's nothing, absolutely nothing, half so much worth doing as simply messing about in boats." He grinned and patted the seat beside him. "Hop in and I'll show you." Mole hesitated for only a moment before clambering into the boat. The rat untied the rope, and with a gentle push, they glided out onto the water. Mole gripped the sides, his heart racing with a mix of fear and exhilaration. The boat rocked slightly, but the rat's steady paws on the oars kept them moving smoothly. "Isn't this splendid?" the rat said, his voice full of joy. "The river is the best place to be, my friend. Always changing, always the same, and there's so much to see." Mole nodded, too awestruck to speak. They passed weeping willows trailing their branches in the water, ducks paddling lazily, and fish darting beneath the surface. The world felt vast and full of possibility. After a while, the rat steered the boat back to the bank and tied it up near a cozy-looking hole in the riverbank. "This is my home," he said proudly. "Come in and rest a bit. You must be tired from all that exploring." Mole followed the rat into the hole, which was warm and snug, with a crackling fire and shelves lined with jars of preserves. The rat busied himself making tea, chattering all the while about the river and its ways. Mole listened, enchanted by his new friend's tales. "My name's Rat, by the way," the rat said, handing Mole a steaming cup. "Or Ratty, if you like." "I'm Mole," Mole replied, sipping the tea gratefully. "Thank you for showing me the river. It's wonderful." Rat beamed. "I'm glad you think so. You know, you're welcome to stay as long as you like. There's plenty more to see, and I could use a companion on my adventures." Mole's heart swelled with happiness. He had never imagined such kindness, such friendship. "I'd like that very much," he said softly. Over the next few days, Rat introduced Mole to the joys of river life. They rode up and down the stream, picnicked on the grassy banks, and watched the sun set behind the trees, painting the sky with gold and pink. Mole learned to swim, though he was a bit clumsy at first, and Rat taught him how to fish, though Mole was more interested in watching the glittering water than catching anything. One lazy afternoon, as they lay on the bank after a hearty lunch, Rat turned to Mole and said, "You know, there are others you should meet. There's Toad, for one. He lives in a grand house up the river. Bit of a character, Toad is, always getting into some new fad or another. And then there's Badger, deep in the wild wood. He's a wise old fellow, doesn't come out much, but when he does, you'd best listen to what he says." Mole's ears perked up. "The wild wood? What's that?" Rat's face grew serious. "It's a place you'd do well to avoid, at least for now. Full of weasels and stoats and other unsavory types. But don't worry. we'll stick to the river and the meadows. Plenty to see here without venturing into the wildwood. Mole nodded, though a flicker of curiosity stirred in him. Still, he trusted Rat's judgment and was content to enjoy the peaceful days they shared. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the water, Rat sat up and stretched. "Come on, Mole, let's head back. I've got a surprise for you tonight." Mole followed eagerly, wondering what the surprise could be. When they reached Rat's home, the table was set with a feast: fresh bread, cheese, fruits, and a jug of cool water from the spring. But the real surprise was a small lantern Rat had hung from the ceiling, its warm light flickering like a star. "I thought we could have a little celebration," Rat said, his eyes twinkling, "to new friends and new adventures." Mole's throat tightened with emotion. He had never felt so at home, so accepted. "Thank you, Ratty," he whispered. "This is the best day of my life." And as they sat together, sharing stories and laughter, the river flowed on outside, a gentle reminder that life, like the water, was always moving, always full of wonder. One sunny morning, Rat turned to Mole with a gleam in his eye. "Let's visit Toad Hall today," he said. "Toad's a fine fellow, full of heart, but he's got a new obsession: motor cars. They're loud, fast, and bound to lead him into mischief." Mole, eager to meet this lively character, nodded, and they climbed into Rat's little boat, rowing upstream toward Toad Hall. As the grand estate came into sight, a sharp honk-honk pierced the air. There was Toad, perched in a gleaming motor car, his face alight with glee. "Ratty, and you must be Mole," Toad cried, hopping out with a flourish. "Feast your eyes on this beauty. I'm off to London in her, maybe further. The open road calls." Rat's brow furrowed. "Toad, old chap, aren't you pushing it a bit? Motor cars are risky and costly. You don't want trouble, do you?" Toad threw back his head and laughed. "Trouble? Pish posh. I'm Toad of Toad Hall. Nothing can touch me." And with a roar of the engine, he sped off, kicking up dust and leaving Rat shaking his head. "He's heading for a fall," Rat murmured. Mole, though new to this world, felt a twinge of worry too. A few days later, Mole's curiosity got the better of him. Rat had warned him about the wild wood. It's no place for a mole alone, he'd said. But Mole felt a spark of boldness. I'll just have a peek, he told himself, setting off down a winding path into the shadowy forest. At first, it was lovely. Birds trilled and sunlight dappled the ground. But deeper in, the trees closed in, the light faded, and eerie sounds rustled around him. Mole's heart thudded. Was that a growl? A snap? He broke into a run, tripping over roots until he collapsed, breathless and scared, in a clearing. Who's there? A gruff voice rumbled. Mole looked up to see a sturdy badger stepping from a burrow, his eyes sharp but kind. Please, sir, Mole panted. I'm lost and frightened. Can you help? Badger's stern face softened. Come along, lad, he said, leading Mole into a snug underground home where a fire glowed and stew simmered. Mole sank gratefully by the hearth. Moments later, a frantic knock sounded, and Rat burst in. Mole, you're safe. I was beside myself when I couldn't find you. Mole hugged him tight. I'm sorry, Ratty. I should have listened. Badger chuckled. No harm done. Now sit down, both of you. Let's eat and talk about Toad. Word is, he's stirring up chaos with that motor car. Over supper, the three friends shared their concerns. Toad's on a dangerous path, Badger said, his tone firm. We need to step in before he wrecks himself. I say we go to Toad Hall and talk sense into him, even if we have to lock him up for his own sake. Rat and Mole nodded, and the next day they marched to Toad Hall, resolve in their hearts. Toad, however, was in high spirits when they arrived, waxing poetic about his next grand drive. Across the country this time, he crowed. Who's with me? Badger crossed his arms. Toad, enough. This obsession's gone too far. We're here to stop you, like it or not. Toad's eyes flashed. Stop me? I'm Toad of Toad Hall. You'll never cage me. He stormed out, slamming the door. He's stubborn as a mule, Badger growled. We'll have to force the issue. They caught Toad, dragged him, kicking and shouting, to his room and locked the door. But Toad was sly. That night, he shimmied out the window and dashed to the nearest town, where a sleek motor car sat tempting him outside an inn. Oh, you beauty, he whispered, hopping in. With a wild laugh, he tore off down the road until sirens wailed and the police nabbed him for theft. Word of Toad's arrest hit Rat and Mole like a thunderclap. 20 years in prison, Mole wailed. What do we do? Rat draped an arm around him. We'll figure it out, Mole. friends don't give up. To ease their heavy hearts, Rat proposed a day on the river. They packed a basket, bread, cheese, a crisp apple or two, and rode to a shady nook beneath a weeping willow. The water sparkled, the breeze sang, and for a while their troubles melted away. Life's a mixed bag, Rat mused, nibbling a crust. But with this river and good company, we'll manage. Mole smiled, warmed by the peace of it all. Yet their calm was short-lived. A breathless messenger arrived from Toad Hall. Toads locked away, and the weasels and stoats have seized the place. Rat leapt up. This is outrageous. We need Badger. Agreed, Mole said, newfound steel in his voice. Let's go. And so, with the river behind them and a fight ahead, the friends turned toward the wild wood, ready to rally and rescue their wayward Toad. Toad sat in his cold, damp prison cell, his once proud spirit broken. He had been foolish. He knew that now. His obsession with motor cars had led him to this dismal place, far from the comforts of Toad Hall and the companionship of his friends. But Toad was not one to wallow in despair for long. A spark of his old cunning flickered to life, and he began to plot his escape. Days turned into weeks, and Toad observed the routines of the prison guards, looking for any weakness he could exploit. His chance came when the jailer's daughter, a kind-hearted girl who had taken pity on the forlorn Toad, offered to help him. She smuggled in a washerwoman's disguise, complete with a bonnet and apron, and under the cover of night, Toad slipped out of his cell. As he tiptoed past the sleeping guard, the man stirred and mumbled, "Who's there?" Toad, thinking quickly, adopted a high-pitched voice. "Just the washerwoman, sir, coming to collect the laundry." The guard, still half asleep, nodded and went back to snoring. Toad breathed a sigh of relief and hurried out of the prison gates, his heart pounding with the thrill of freedom. The journey back to the riverbank was long and arduous. Toad traveled by night, hiding in hedges and ditches by day to avoid detection. He crossed fields and forests, forded streams, and climbed hills, his heart set on home. One evening, weary and hungry, he came across a kindly hedgehog who shared her meager meal with him. "Thank you, kind madam," Toad said, touched by her generosity. "I shall never forget your kindness." Finally, after many days, Toad arrived at the riverbank. His heart swelled with joy. until he saw Toad Hall. The once beautiful gardens were trampled, the windows smashed, and crude graffiti marred the walls. Inside, weasels and stoats lounged on the furniture, their muddy feet propped up on the tables, and the air was thick with the smell of stale food and unwashed bodies. Toad's blood boiled with anger. This was his home, and he would not let these ruffians take it from him. Determined to reclaim Toad Hall, Toad sought out his friends. He found Rat and Mole at Rat's cozy home by the river, and they were overjoyed to see him safe. But their joy quickly turned to dismay when Toad told them of the state of his home. "We must take it back," Badger declared when he joined them, his voice firm. "But we need a plan. The weasels and stoats are many, and we are few." The friends gathered around the table, and Badger spread out a map of Toad Hall. "There is a secret tunnel," he said, pointing to a hidden entrance on the map. "It leads from the woods directly into the heart of Toad Hall. If we can sneak in through there, we can surprise them and drive them out." Mole, who had been quiet, spoke up. "Perhaps we can create a distraction. If we can lure some of them out, it'll be easier to take the hall." "Good thinking, Mole," Rat said. "And once they're out, we can block the doors so they can't get back in." Badger nodded. "And then we strike from within." The plan was agreed upon, and the friends set about preparing for the mission. They gathered sticks and stones, anything that could be used as a weapon, and steeled themselves for the fight ahead. Under the cover of darkness, they made their way to the entrance of the tunnel, hidden beneath a gnarled old tree. They dug through layers of leaves and dirt to uncover it, then lit lanterns and began the long crawl through the narrow, winding passage. The tunnel was dark and damp, the air thick with the smell of earth. Roots dangled from the ceiling, brushing against their faces as they crept forward. The friends moved in silence, their hearts pounding with anticipation and fear. Finally, they reached the end of the tunnel, which opened into a small chamber beneath Toad Hall. From there, a ladder led up to a trapdoor in the floor of the main hall. Badger went first, pushing open the trapdoor and peering out. The hall was filled with weasels and stoats, feasting and reveling, completely unaware of the intruders. With a signal from Badger, the friends burst out of the tunnel, shouting and waving their weapons. The weasels and stoats were caught completely off guard. They scattered in panic, some trying to fight back, but quickly overwhelmed by the determined friends. Toad, in particular, fought with a fury, his anger at the desecration of his home fueling his strength. He faced off against a large stoat who sneered, "Think you can take back your fancy house, do you?" Toad swung his stick and knocked the stoat off his feet. "This is my home, and you are not welcome here." Meanwhile, Mole darted between the legs of a weasel, tripping him up and sending him sprawling. Rat, with his quick reflexes, disarmed another weasel and sent him running. Badger, with his size and strength, was a force to be reckoned with, sending weasels flying with powerful blows. Within minutes, the hall was cleared, the weasels and stoats fleeing into the night, never to return. Toad Hall was once again in the rightful hands of its owner. Toad was overjoyed, hugging his friends and thanking them profusely. "I don't know what I would have done without you," he said, his eyes shining with gratitude. "I promise from now on I'll be more responsible. No more reckless adventures, no more obsessions. I'll be a better toad." The friends smiled, relieved to see their friend safe and sound, and hopeful that he had indeed learned his lesson. To celebrate their victory, they held a grand feast. The table was laden with all manner of delicious foods, fresh bread, ripe fruits, savory pies, and sweet cakes. They laughed and sang, telling stories of their adventure and toasting to their friendship. "To friendship," Rat said, raising his glass. "To courage," Mole added. "To home," Toad said, his voice choked with emotion. "And to the river," Badger concluded, "which flows on, ever changing, ever the same." They clinked their glasses and drank, knowing that their bond was unbreakable. As the night drew to a close, they stepped outside to watch the stars. The wind rustled through the willows, carrying with it the promise of new adventures. But for now, they were content to be together, safe and happy in their riverbank home. And so, the story of the wind in the willows came to a close, with the friends living happily ever after in their beloved riverbank home, where the wind whispered through the willows and the river flowed on, ever changing, ever the same,